Billions in bonds to build up Columbus. Ahead on Face the State, setting up the city for the future with affordable housing, parks, police stations, and more. City Councilman Nick Bankston joins me in studio to talk about the potential impact of the bond package voters just passed. The check may be in the mail, but should you put your ballot in the mail? Why a bill just passed in the state Senate would give you less time to make sure your absentee vote counts. Plus, an agreement on a new congressional map for Ohio. The DOJ wants Ohio voter records and recapping Tuesday's election. Secretary of State Frank LaRose sits down with me to discuss the big issues for Ohio voters. Face the State starts now. Thanks for joining us for Face the State. I'm Doug Petcash. More than 2.1 million Ohioans made their voices heard in Tuesday's election. That's about 26% of registered voters. Voters in Columbus overwhelmingly supported the city's nearly $2 billion bond package for facilities and infrastructure. City leaders say those 5 bonds will not raise your taxes. Here's the breakdown. $500 million will be used for neighborhood development and affordable housing. $500 million for public utilities such as water lines, sewer improvements, and power infrastructure. $400 million for public service. That's sidewalks, street resurfacing, bridge repairs, trash and recycling equipment. $250 million for recreation and parks. This money will be used for community centers, parks, pools, and trees along city streets, as well as $250 million for safety, health, and infrastructure, which will fund police and fire stations, fire trucks, and municipal court. Joining me now to discuss what the Columbus bond package will do, its potential impact on those who live here in the city, is Columbus City Council member Nick Bankston. Councilman, thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Doug.
First of all, just what is the impact that you believe this $1.9 billion bond package will have on the city?
I mean, it is historic. It is the largest bond package in the city's history. It's going to make significant investments in critical infrastructure. As we talk about our city that is growing, we have to make investments in that infrastructure to accommodate that growth, but also to invest in our residents of today. I think chief among those issues that I'm really excited about to see is affordable housing. $500 million this community stepped up and said that we need to invest in that. That is historic for us. We've gone to voters twice now around affordable housing. This is really almost doubling what we had asked them for in the previous bond issues. And so really excited about the investments that that's going to make around, preserving affordable housing, building more affordable housing, and making sure that we get deeper subsidies in neighborhoods and make sure that that opportunity is for all residents.
How does that work? How would the $500 million for affordable housing be used?
Yeah, I mean, so what we've done before with the past dollars is it leverages other dollars. When we are partnering with developers, partnering and leveraging state and federal subsidy dollars to build units, through the 2 bond packages that we had before, which was about $250 million, we were able to leverage and create just approximately 6,000 housing units in the city. Almost half of those were affordable or some type of income restriction. And so that is really what this is about, is how do we get more units online, particularly get affordable units in more desirable and opportunity neighborhoods. We want to ensure that you're able to afford to live in all parts of the city, not just one part.
People love their parks and whatnot. What will that money, what do you hope to see that money and what will people see from the parks and recreation money?
Yeah, that's probably the funnest one, right? That's where we get to touch and feel. I mean, it goes into investments like we have Kilbourne Run that is opening up this year. It is a park that is focused solely on soccer. It's a sports park. It's big projects like that, but it's also small pocket parks in our neighborhoods as well, and planting more trees in our city. We can also see new rec centers that we're going to build with those dollars, new pools. We recently did a study around our pools and trying to make sure that we continue to build pools to accommodate the growth of the city. Marion Franklin is a great example of a new pool that will be coming online next year. We've already started construction on that. And so that's really what it's about, that quality of life infrastructure. There's the things that we have to do. Pave the streets, make sure we have safe, clean drinking water. But to have a city where families thrive, we have to have those amenities like our great parks and recreation centers.
And you also have to keep the police and fire departments staffed and equipped.
Absolutely.
And a lot of $250 million going for that type of thing.
Absolutely. Safety is our top priority for any, I think, government, and particularly here at the city. And so building newer facilities for our firefighters and for our police officers, making sure that they have the best equipment and tools necessary to keep us all safe. Particularly proud of what we've been doing with our fire stations, making sure that they are up to date with the most best technology to keep our firefighters safe, because they're out there on the front lines every single day in some very dangerous conditions. And so making sure that we can do everything we can to keep them safe while they protect us and keep us safe.
We've heard this will not raise taxes.
Yeah.
What does the city have in place to ensure that it won't impact people's taxes that way?
You know, we historically, we've put in guardrails for us. We are unique in that our bond sales and debt is backed by income tax, not property tax. So what you saw on your ballot, it absolutely said this can raise your taxes by this amount. What the voters are basically doing is saying to our investors that we are backing the city's debt in the event that they can't pay it back. We have never issued a levy on property taxes to pay back our debt. That's because we take 25 cents of every income tax dollar and we set it aside. It's called our income tax set aside fund, specifically to pay debt service. Additionally, on top of that, we have imposed on ourselves through our code a 1.5 coverage ratio, meaning that we can't borrow more than 1.5. I mean, we have to borrow and 1.5 and have 1.5 coverage of income tax to even pay that back. So there's guardrails in place that allow us to do that. We have never, again, raised taxes to pay for our bonds. We have gone to the voters now 111 unique times for bond issues. They've passed 105 of those, and they've passed every single one since 1981. And the city has not raised property tax on the city side of the ledger since 1956.
1956.
And so this goes back to, I think, governance. It goes back to our auditor, who makes sure that we put those controls in place. It's, you know, I as the finance chair, work directly with our Department of Finance and the mayor and the auditor to make sure that we are only borrowing what we can actually pay back.
You mentioned 111 of these types of requests. Will there be another bond request in 3 to 4 years, as has been kind of the pattern?
Absolutely. We continue to go to voters. These types of scales of projects require continued and sustained investment. And so the bond program, voters can expect to see it every 3 to 5 years. Again, what you're seeing on your ballot is you giving us the authority to go out and borrow that money and pay it back over time.
I guess not only as a city councilman, but also as a resident of Columbus, what do you want to see this city be in 10, 15 years?
I want us to be a city that everyone is able to thrive and live in our city. If you work here, you should be able to live here. I want to see a city that is worthy of my son's generation. I'm raising 2 young boys, and I think about what type of community they are going to grow up in. And we want that community to be greener. We want that community to be safe. We want that community to be equitable. And so that requires us to make investments in infrastructure, sidewalks, streetlights, trees, parks. These are not things that should only be available to folks that have means or wealthy suburbs. These are amenities that all cities should have, particularly the fastest growing city in the Midwest. And so for me, it is about really how do we make that investment in the quality of life infrastructure for our residents so that they can thrive and so that we can continue to be a city that welcomes all and is affordable and accessible to all.
Columbus City Councilman Nick Bankston, thank you so much for your time
Absolutely.
weighing in on what this bond package could potentially have the impact on the city. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Doug.
All right. Well, still ahead on Face the State, a change to the absentee ballot deadline. A bill just passed in the state Senate would do away with a post-election grace period. Hear from those for and against the change. Plus, breaking down Tuesday's election with Secretary of State Frank LaRose. We also talk about the DOJ's demands for Ohio voter information and the new bipartisan congressional district map. My one-on-one interview straight ahead. If you vote absentee ballot by mail, you might need to get your ballot into the elections office earlier in future elections. The state Senate passed a bill to eliminate the 4-day grace period for mail-in ballots to be received. The Senate voted 23-10, mostly along party lines. Republicans say it will bring Ohio in line with federal election law. Democrats call it a voter suppression bill.
It will provide the impetus for voters to make their voices heard and inspire confidence in a fair and secure election.
Bill sponsor, State Senator Teresa Gavarone, says Senate Bill 293 will bring Ohio into compliance with federal law.
So now 34 states, 2/3 of the country, now require absentee ballots returned by mail to be received on or before Election Day.
Ohio would be the 35th. Democrats argue the bill potentially disenfranchises tens of thousands of voters.
But now we're going to make it tougher for people who do nothing wrong but rely on the Postal Service to get their ballot into the Board of Elections.
Right now, absentee ballots can be received at County Board of Elections offices up to 4 days after an election and still be counted. This bill would eliminate that 4-day grace period. All ballots would have to be in by 7:30 on election night.
Having that certainty that the ballots are going to be in on election day, it also allows our tabulation process. You'll have more certainty on election night, who the winner is going to be, and that's important to voters.
Gavarone points out voters can also drop off ballots or vote early in person at elections offices or vote on election day. According to the Secretary of State's office, more than 52,000 absentee ballots were still outstanding the day before Tuesday's election. Democrats and other opponents say many Ohioans who have to rely on the Postal Service need the extra 4 days.
It provides incredible access for senior citizens, people with disabilities, rural Ohioans who have to drive really far to get to the Board of Elections, but also have slower mail service.
Anyone who has difficulty for whatever reason getting to the polls.
The bill exempts military and overseas voters. They will still have the 4-day grace period. The bill now goes to the House for consideration. This week, I sat down with Secretary of State Frank LaRose. We talked about this legislation, the unanimous vote of the Ohio Redistricting Commission on a new map for Ohio's 15 congressional districts, and the Justice Department's demand for Ohio voter information. We started with how Tuesday's election went. Well, Mr. Secretary, first of all, thanks for being here today.
Thank you.
So how was voter turnout for this general election, and what do you think of that?
Well, we always want to see a higher turnout. I always tell my team we're not going to rest until we get to 100% turnout, which means we're not going to rest. But over 2.1 million Ohioans made their voices heard. That's over 26% of our registered voters in the state. They decided some really important issues, local tax levies, mayors, city council races, that kind of thing. And it ran very smoothly. It's a testament to the 33,000 bipartisan election officials that run Election Day, that things continue to go so smoothly. And when Ohioans come out to vote, they know it's going to be both easy to vote and also hard to cheat.
Now, you have a command center on Election Day throughout the whole day and into the night, a rapid response team. You told me the other day that they sometimes respond to about 200 issues every election. Were there any big things that came up this time around?
Thankfully, no. And really the point of that is making sure that the show stays on the road. Nothing can interrupt Election Day. 6:30 a.m. till 7:30 p.m. We have that chance to make sure that every eligible voice can be heard. Minor things here, a gas leak, a power outage, a suspicious package, those kind of things come up. We work with local law enforcement and with our county boards of elections to make sure that nothing stands in the way of every voice being heard.
So went pretty smoothly overall, and
Absolutely.
the votes are all being counted.
Yeah, and of course on election night we count all of those votes in the unofficial tally. We released those results on election night at each county board of elections. And now we're in the post-election period where we're doing those final tallies, where we're going to do the post-election audits. And we audit every election. Every ballot in Ohio is on paper, 100%. And we actually go back and count the paper to make sure it matches the electronic result. That's why Ohioans know they can trust their results.
And when do you make those results official?
3 weeks after the election.
3 weeks,
Yep.
okay. So any lessons learned this time on a smaller election heading into what really could be huge huge elections in 2026?
Well, there are always really dozens of lessons learned. I've brought what I call the AAR culture, that's a military thing, after action review, not only to our county boards of elections, to what we do at the Secretary's office. You saw when you were in our office those big boards in each room where people can write things down in the moment. These are things that we want to improve next time.
Okay.
Issues come up that a lot of times the solution is going back to that checklist, like we were talking off air about the mistake that was made here in Central Ohio about a candidate that was not placed on the ballot in a certain number of precincts. Again, that's a checklist issue at that county board of elections. Those are things that we work to improve so that next year we don't have the same mistakes.
This week, the Senate passed a bill to require all absentee mail-in ballots to be at the elections office by 7:30 on election night, meaning that 4-day grace period for them to be received at elections offices would be eliminated. As the state's top elections official, what do you think of that legislation?
So I testified in support of that. The fact is that Ohio is kind of an outlier currently with receiving ballots 4 days after the election, as long as they're postmarked by election day. That's what the current law says. But more than 30 states around the country cut off receipt of ballots on election day. It's a very clear and easy thing to understand, with, of course, an exception for our overseas and military voters. That's the will of the state legislature, it would appear. It's also something that the president and his administration has expressed an interest in trying to create more uniformity nationwide on that. And so it puts us in line with a lot of red and blue states around the country that simply cut off receiving ballots on election day.
Do you worry about people's voices not being heard, though? And I checked your website, and there were 52,000 outstanding mail-in ballots as of noon on Monday. So I'm sure some more of them came in. But that's Republicans, that's Democrats, that's independents. Do you worry about silencing voices by making that deadline cutoff?
Well, again, what we want to do is make sure that people know what the standard is. It's easy to understand ballots by election day. Most people, don't really know, is it 4 days, is it 5 days, what is it? If you just let people know that ballots have to be in by election day, it's pretty clear then that what you want to do is you want to mail them the week before the election or take them down to the drop box, which of course county boards of elections have, and it makes it a sort of a clear thing. It prevents procrastination too. Let's be honest, that's part of human nature. Sometimes people wait until the last minute. A clear standard like ballots must be in on election day is actually easier for people to understand.
We talked earlier this week as well about the Department of Justice requesting or demanding basically voter roll information from the states. You've received that request from the Department of Justice. Where does that stand, and are you concerned about sharing certain information of Ohio voters with the federal government?
Where it stands is we're working with them, right? I mean, there's the publicly available data that they can access or anybody else can. Ohio's voter rolls are highly transparent. You can look on our website to get that, and that's always been the case in Ohio. When it comes to releasing more granular data to them, personally identifiable information, what we would have to do is to make sure that there's the right data protections in place to do that, and that's why it's an ongoing conversation.
You're talking about like driver's license numbers, social
last fours of
security.
socials, those kind of things, right? And what do they want to do with this? If it's for list maintenance, then listen, we work closely with the federal government on list maintenance. This is the SAVE database that we've actually been working hand in glove with them to help improve. That's how we identify non-citizens. And as you know, we've referred a bunch on citizens that are caught registering to vote. That's how we remove deceased voters. So again, there can be a collaborative relationship with our federal partners, but we also have to protect the data of Ohioans.
Because states run our elections.
No question
So
about it.
is it kind of the federal government meddling in a state issue?
No more than the Voting Rights Act or the Federal Election Assistance Commission, which have been in existence for decades and decades. So there's always this relationship between the states running the elections and the federal government doing things to assist with that or to create standards. Again, that's what the Voting Rights Act does. That's what HAVA, the Help America Vote Act, did over 20 years ago. I mean, these are things that the federal government can do, and list maintenance is one of those things. For example, with somebody passes away in another state, we need to find out about that so that we can make sure they're removed from Ohio's voter rolls. We need to be able to exchange data between states so that if somebody attempts to vote in 2 states, we can catch that and that individual can be prosecuted for it. So there are certainly roles for the federal government, and that's why we're working closely with them.
As Secretary of State, you also sit on the Ohio Redistricting Commission.
Correct.
A bipartisan plan was passed unanimously recently. How do you feel about the map that was approved and that the process came up with a map before it went back to the General Assembly?
Well, let's start with the fact that it was a unanimous bipartisan vote. That's a success story. I also know, having been involved in redistricting for a few years, that whenever a map is passed, nobody is ever completely happy with it. That's what happens as a result of negotiation. Republicans think we could have gotten more. Democrats think we could have gotten more, or whatever there may be, the different concerns about communities that were divided, that previously were not. Those kind of things always come up, but the system worked. Ohio Republicans and Ohio Democrats came together at the Ohio Redistricting Commission, and we passed maps that first comply with the Ohio Constitution, second, largely match the political will of our state, and third, the thing that I was really focused on as our state's chief elections officer is avoiding the chaos that would have been created by a last-minute referendum effort. There were already dark money groups on the left that were threatening to do a referendum that could have resulted in delaying the primary next year and having to do an August primary for congressional races. That would have been chaotic. It would have been costly. Thankfully, we avoided all of that by coming together at the Redistricting Commission.
The final question. The Democrats had originally proposed a map that was favored Republicans in 8 districts, Democrats in 7 districts. They were saying that, in Ohio, 55% of voters are Republican, 45% are Democrat. So that map that they argued matched the proportionality, basically, of the state's voters. How did you feel about that proposal?
Well, look at the state lines that haven't changed for over 200 years, and those are the outlines of the state of Ohio, which has overwhelmingly elected Republicans over the last 10, 15 years as well, right? All the statewide offices, that kind of thing. Listen, there's also this thing about political geography where people tend to cluster with like-minded individuals, and that means that in order to create the kind of proportionality that the Democrats wanted to, you would have had to grossly gerrymander the state of Ohio, which nobody would find acceptable either. Listen, this is always a compromise, trying to come down to where the district lines are going to go, but that's behind us now. The question now is candidates starting to circulate their petition and go out there and earn votes next year, and that's what really it comes down to. It comes down to the voice of the voters choosing who they want to have representing them.
And the May primary will be here before we know it.
And we're already getting ready for it.
I'm sure you are.
Yeah.
Probably even before this past election, too.
Yep.
Mr. Secretary, thank you so much for your time. I always appreciate it when you come in.
Thank you, Doug.
Next on Face the State, help is on the way for food banks and very low-income Ohioans amid the pause on SNAP benefits. Governor DeWine promised state help, and now the money is going out. We'll have an update. Some state help is now on the way for Ohioans impacted by the pause in SNAP benefits. On October 30th, Governor DeWine announced the state would provide up to $25 million in food assistance support. $7 million of that will go to food banks across the state. The other $18 million in emergency benefits will go to about 63,000 low-income Ohioans who are Ohio Works First recipients. That includes 57,000 children. The Ohio Department of Job and Family Services expected recipients to get their first installment of this money by this past Friday. Payments will be weekly for up to 4 weeks or until SNAP funding resumes.
The additional money that is going really to the poorest of the poor. This is 57,000 children who are living in the poorest families.
The money allocated to food banks went out on Thursday. The Mid-Ohio Food Collective received more than $1.4 million. The amount for each food bank is based on the food bank's percentage of customers who receive SNAP benefits. And 10 TV is stepping up to help feed Central Ohio families. We're teaming up with the Mid-Ohio Food Collective and several community sponsors for our new initiative, Fill the Truck, Feed the Kids. Every dollar helps pay for meals for those who need them most. You can help make a difference by donating today. Just text the word FEED to 614-460-3345 to get a link sent straight to your phone. Help us fight hunger across Central Ohio. Thank you for joining me this week for Face the State. I'm Doug Petcash. I'll see you next Sunday at 11:30. Have a great day.